My name is Dr. Carlos Rivera. I'm a pediatrician from Patchogue, New York, with over 18 years of clinical experience. Today I would like to speak to you regarding the deleterious effects of high-conflict divorce on the emotional and psychological development of children. As a society, we've neglected to acknowledge the true suffering of children of divorce that they have endured. The age-old adage that children are resilient and bounce back from negative experiences couldn't be further from the truth. We now know that negative and traumatic experiences directly affect cognitive development and memory. Brain structures are physically altered by alterations in the neurotransmitter and hormonal milieu. The development of a child's brain architecture provides a foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. Just as a weak foundation compromises the quality and strength of a house, adverse experiences early in life can impair brain architecture with negative effects lasting into adulthood. Toxic stress weakens the architecture of the developing brain, in particular areas dedicated to higher order skills, which can lead to lifelong problems in learning, behavior, physical and mental health, and quality of life across their lifetime. In the late 1990s, researchers from the Centers of Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente were able to provide very compelling evidence that childhood trauma and instability impact health outcomes. The Adverse Childhood Experiences study uncovered a stunning link between childhood trauma and the chronic diseases people develop as adults, as well as social, emotional, and physical disorders. This includes heart disease, lung cancer, and many autoimmune diseases, as well as depression, violence, being the victim of violence, and suicide. There are 10 types of childhood trauma measured in the ACE study. 5 are personal: physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical neglect, and emotional neglect. 5 are related to other family members, such as a parent who's an alcoholic, a mother who's a victim of domestic violence, a family member in jail, a family member diagnosed with a mental illness, and the disappearance of a parent through divorce, death, or abandonment. Children exposed to multiple adverse childhood events are much more likely to experience health risks, including alcoholism, drug abuse, depression and suicide attempt, smoking, multiple sexual partners, and sexually transmitted diseases. Divorce or separation is the most common adverse childhood experience reported nationally. According to the CDC, the annual healthcare cost of adult patients who have a history of early trauma is $124 billion a year. Validating patients' past trauma isn't only beneficial for their well-being, it translates into fewer tests, procedures, and healthcare dollars spent. Sadly, with the current rate of divorce exceeding 50%, the prevalence of long-term health risks associated with these adverse events rises at an astonishing rate. This is further compounded by the current societal belief that divorces can only be dealt with in an adversarial manner. The current culture of divorce encourages acrimonious dissolution of marriages, resulting in irrevocable harm to our children. Even if divorcing couples seek an amicable situation, the modus operandi of our court system encourages conflict. We must strive to shield our children from this harm and provide an environment free of avoidable conflict. Our courts must truly act in the best interest of children and discourage current practices aimed at harming one parent in the process of winning the divorce. Divorce is not a competition, it's a dissolution of a relationship. The preservation of the child's future must take precedent over the material and economic gain. But in current society, this notion is naive. There are currently too many weapons in the legal arsenal to facilitate battle during the divorce process. All too often, loving parents lose sight of the harm endured by children in the throes of legal battle. Hurt people, hurt people. Adults can be irrational when facing the economic and emotional strain of divorce. False accusations, interference with parenting time, and parenting alienation are common, the latter being the most damaging to the developing child. Parental alienation is a process and the result of psychological manipulation of a child into showing unwarranted fear, disrespect, or hostility towards a parent, grandparent, or other family member or friend. It is a deliberate, sustained effort to damage and diminish or outright eliminate a child's loving feelings towards a parent. This is a severe form of child abuse. The majority of children want contact with both parents on a regular basis, and the most common preference among children and amongst adults looking back on their parents' divorce is for parenting plans that merely evenly balance the time between homes. Though theoretically possible, this is seldom the case. While many states purport to provide this arrangement, the statistical likelihood is that one parent will see their child or children one evening per week and every other weekend. In reality, tallying up to approximately only 5 days of parenting time during any given month. In cases of parental alienation, this potentially facilitates more opportunities to bond with a more aggressive parent. The alienation of children goes unnoticed by the courts many times because most of the judges and lawyers do not recognize the signs of it nor provide the appropriate means to investigate it. Frankly put, most of these judges do not have the training or qualifications to identify the problem that exists in a lot of these situations. On average, when looking at the biographies and credentials available from many family law judges and attorneys, you find a lot of the same type of educational degrees, legal backgrounds, and accolades. While everything has exceptions, rarely do you see the evidence that these authorities have any specialized training and skill sets to deal with the psychology, children, and parenting. This is alarming considering the courts claim to actively make decisions under the banner of a child's best interest. Many decisions often get made in favor of one parent over another based on motion filings, hearsay without any outside evaluations done by neutral third parties with real expertise in areas trained to deal with psychological aspects of custody and divorce, thus best suited to assess parents and children and uncover signs of alienation. Combine this with the many unethical and manipulative tactics used by lawyers and players in custody and divorce appeals, and you have a recipe for disaster. We the people have entrusted individuals who by their very nature and training are prone to adversarial conflict in the form of litigation and courtroom displays to make decisions and steer outcomes regarding a child's well-being. It is in this way that children often become more like pawns on a chessboard as opposed to having their best interests genuinely prioritized and safeguarded. In the end, it is the children who suffer each and every time. Though this is clearly a form of child abuse, many witnesses to parental alienation do not intervene. There's a common belief that this is a private matter within the family and outsiders will be violating the privacy of that family. Witnesses thereby act as bystanders who do not act in the event of an endangered child. We need to change this trend and demand that witnesses speak up and rise to protect these children from irreversible emotional and physical harm. We must also be cognizant of the collateral harm suffered by estranged parents, families, and loved ones. Over the course of my career, I've repeatedly witnessed families emotionally torn by this process. I have listened to repeated testimonials of how, when compared to the most devastating personal loss or challenge, alienation from a loved child by far exceeds the trauma of any other life event or challenge. Military veterans who served in active combat state that they would rather face risk to their own life in battle than be estranged, alienated, and kept from their child. Currently, there are multiple loopholes and opportunities that facilitate the actions and choices of parents who choose to alienate a targeted parent from their child. From parental alienation to custody issues, CPS intervention, child trafficking, and medical kidnapping, there are numerous critical issues to address. These are topics that will be addressed by my colleagues in attendance. The current safeguards in our courts fall short of the charge to protect the best interests of the children. There is a dire need for revision and reform to address the protection of children affected by the process of divorce. We are now fully aware of the adverse effects of divorce on children's health. We have a duty to act. I implore the distinguished individuals attending this conference to dedicate their efforts for effective revision and change. We have the responsibility for health and welfare of our children's future and must be steadfast in our resolve to preventing the preventable. I thank you for your time and look forward to the effective change you are empowered to provide. Thank you.